that time I was on Long Island, you know. But then it got time to where Denise got pregnant, my wife, and my uncle told me, he says, now you got to get serious, you know, you're gonna have a kid, and blah 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 blah. And he said, um, I'm thinking about buying this car service at King's Plaza, you know, and if you want, you know, you could run it. And you know, it was a good deal, I guess. He was paying me 250 a week to do that, and then it just like got a little squirrely, you know, because I mean, it was. He started taking me around with him, and I started meeting all the wise guy honchos. You know. I mean, Paulie Castellano, I was from when I was a kid. But it came down to where, you know, I was starting to meet people, and then Nino said to me, you know, do you want to make an extra $50 a week? And I said, okay. And he said, you know, go into Manhattan and see Chuck Anderson at the 21 Club. He was the maitre d', and pick up, you know, $50 from him and just keep it. So my salary went up to 300, you know, and it stayed there for a long time. Yeah. Then eventually, you know, he came to me. What had happened was, like 12 years earlier, Nino had driven his brother's wife to the grocery store on Bath Avenue. And she got out of the car. She was very good looking, my aunt. And she got out of the car, and there was a bunch of guys hanging out there, and they made a comment. And Nino jumped out of the car with a hammer and started trying to beat them. And this one guy hit him and broke his nose. So 12 years later, he said to me, he said, you know, we got to whack this guy. And I went to school with Vinny. Right? His name was Vincent Governero. We went to school together. I mean, I knew the guy, you know. And I said, for what? He said, he told me the story. You know, 12 years ago, blah, blah, blah. I said, 12 years ago, you broke your nose. Now we're going to kill him? And he said, yeah, but you got to do it. I said, why? And he said, because if you're going to be in this thing, you got to, you know, you got to make your bones. So what happened was, his car was parked on 20th Avenue and Bath Avenue, like a block away from the 6-2 precinct. And what we decided to do is rig a hand grenade in his car. All right. So I broke into the car, and I had the hand grenade, and I rigged it like under his seat and cut the spoon with pliers so the spoon wouldn't get hung up when it sprung underneath the seat. And I took fish hooks, you know, the leads, and I tied one around the pin and hooked it into his driver's side door, and one around the body of the hand grenade and hooked it into the floor. Got out the back. Then I broke toothpicks in the doors and stuffed them in, so like if he tried to get in any other door, it wouldn't work. The only door that he could get in was the driver's side. But also, aside from the precinct being there was PS 200, which was all the kids going to school. So this was around midnight that I rigged it. So I went home, and it was only a block and a half from where I lived. I went home and I sat on the porch, you know, and what I figured was if I didn't hear a boom by like 6 in the morning, I was going to go and defuse it. You know, I was going to go remove it because then there would have been kids going to school and shit. But about 4 o'clock in the morning, I heard the and went to bed, you know, because it worked, you know. And that's basically when, you know, I had my stock in the life. That's what they say, your stock has risen. So my stock rose. But it's all fucked up anyway, because your stock, it don't matter. Because the tougher you get, the more scared they get, the more they try and keep you down. That's the game.
Now, what did the news say? Like, how did he? It's such a random way to go.
It really didn't make the news. It made the papers, you know. And oddly enough, what happened was he didn't die. He didn't die. It blew him out of the car. He wound up on the marquee of the Deluxe movie theater on Bath Avenue. And he was all broken up. He had a lot of broken bones and shit. And what happened was, after he healed up, you know, he took off and he lived in California for like 2 years. Because he thought it was Sammy the Bull's crew. Jerry Papa, Sammy the Bull, Jimmy Emma. He thought it was them doing it. So when they assured him, you know, that he could come back, he came back. And then it was my wife's birthday party, right? And we're all, you know, birthdays were a big thing in my house. And we had the cake, and we had all the presents and shit. And boy, DeMeo came over, and he said, guess who I just saw on 85th Street, hanging out in front of the candy store? And I said, oh. He said, Vinny Mook. Once Nino heard that, he said, all right, let's go downstairs. We went downstairs. We loaded up. And we put on our disguises and stuff. It was May 27th. And we went out and we hung out like across the street. And when he went to go to his car, we just shot him in the street. And we were using Roy's car, a white Caddy. And we got in the car and we're trying to pull out, you know, because we were like kind of like, you know, few moves to pull out. And there's this fucking guy behind us blowing his fucking horn, right? And Nino was saying to Roy, he's saying, this fucking guy knew just what we just did. You think he'd be blowing his horn? And Roy said, you know, you want me to get in a car? I'll whack him right now. I'll just shoot him in the fucking head. Nino said, no, he didn't do nothing. He's just blowing his horn. You know. Yeah, so that was the Vinny Mook story.